All right. So yesterday we had stopped at J button. I think you remember how the J button worked. Remember in the J button you can add a normal text, or we can also add a image icon. This is how you could add a image icon also. If you remember yesterday in this J button class, we had to pass the object of my image icon class, and that image icon will consist of a parameter, nothing but your path of the image, right? So this is how you can create a J button. Yesterday we saw how to create a image J button and a normal J button also with text we have seen here. You can see, right? So next we will talk about something called as toggle button. Now this toggle button is a new thing for you people. So listen very carefully. I think you would have already come across this in many different forms and all. When you click on a button, that button will stay pressed. It will not pop back up. Okay. And if you press the same button again, it will pop back up. That is nothing but your toggle button, guys. A toggle button will have two states, pushed state and released state. That means when you click it once, it will be in pushed state. And again, when you click that button, it will be in released state. So when you click the button, it will not get pushed and pop back. At any given time, it will be either pushed or released, right? So that is what a toggle button works like. So the same button you have to click twice to make it get clicked and popped also, right? So that is what toggle button means. There are many uses of this toggle button. So basically remember what a toggle button is. Clicking the button twice. Two states are there for this button. A normal button has only one state, just a click. When you click, it will just get clicked and pop off. That's all, pop out, right? But toggle button will not do that. It will have either pushed or released state. We'll see that in an example. So when you press a toggle button, it stays pressed rather than popping back up as a regular push button. That is what toggle button is, right? And it second time you click on the same button, it will release or it will pop up. It will pop out. Okay. So for that, we will use a class called JToggle button, inbuilt class. Now this is specifically for a swing component. This toggle button was not there in AWT. We did not see the toggle button in AWT, but a toggle button is there in your specifically in your swings. So make sure you know this. For that, you have to use a class called JToggle button. Okay. This JToggle button also generates action event. Okay, listen carefully. It generates action event. Apart from action event, you already know that J button that we saw in the previous slide, it created it. Yeah, obviously when it generated action event. But J toggle button not only generates action event, it will also generate item event, guys. Okay, remember we had something called as item event for your checkbox and all in your AWT. Similarly, toggle button will also have an item event also apart from action event. Two events are connected to this J toggle button. You can use any of those events. So make sure you know that this is a little different compared to your J button, right? So it can generate action event. It can also generate item event. How it will do, we'll see with an example. Next, the easiest way to determine if it is a toggle button, you already know this, the state of the toggle button by using this function called is selected. Okay, if it is selected or not. If it is selected, that means it is true. If it is not selected, it is false. Using this is selected function, you can find out if it is pressed or not. So in this case, we will see an example now for a J toggle button, guys. All right, are you able to see this screen, guys? J toggle button screen. I mean, Eclipse.
Yes, sir.
Okay. 1 minute. It's still loading on my screen. It's taking time to load. Okay, 1 second. All right. So in this particular example, if you are not able to see on your small, phone screens, you please zoom in and see, guys. So in this particular example, you can see here as all the previous examples, similar example we have done here. The class we have only one single class that we have created, guys. We have created only one class called as swing J toggle button demo, and it is extending a J frame. Remember, we are talking about swings. It is not extending frame. It is extending a J frame, right? So it's extending JFrame, and we are going to implement item listener. The reason why we are using item listener is because J toggle button will also create or generate an item event. For that, we are implementing item listener. Can you tell me what is the function used for item listener, guys?
Item state change.
Okay, good. So there are people who are listening and hearing to what I'm saying. So that is good. So please make sure you remember, for item listener, the function that is used is item state changed. Now, one thing I want to tell you here, guys, is that in swings there are so many more, components that you can have. The components that I'm doing here are only few. There are many more components you can add, which are not there in your syllabus. And each component has so many different functions you can use. So it is beyond the syllabus. Whenever you have time, please sit down and practice with different components and functions for different events by sitting at home, and whenever you have time, please practice those programs, because beyond the syllabus there are many other functions that are there as part of your swings, guys. Functions as well as components. Okay, so these are some of the major common components that are normally used. Fine. So in this case, in this particular class, main function is being used. Same exact thing as the previous ones, guys. Swing utilities, calling, invoke, and wait. Runnable interface, we are creating a thread, child thread, and then in this particular example, okay, we don't need this private here. So in this case, we are creating a J toggle button. So in this case, this is the class we have to use, right? Whenever you want to create a J toggle button. And in this particular constructor, we are going to tell what all we want to do with that J frame. So initially, I'm setting the title of my J frame to J toggle button with item listener example. That is the title of my J frame. Next, I'm setting the layout as flow layout, size is 200 by 200, visible is true, default close operation, so and so. Next, when you want to create the button, this is how you create it. Button is the object name, new J toggle button, and I am writing the text inside that button as on. Initially, the text of my button is on. On will be there in that button. It will be written as. Okay. Next, remember, for this toggle button, you can have a item listener or action listener, both, because both action event as well as item event will be generated. In this case, we are talking about item event. So button dot add item listener, we are registering the listener for this particular button. Okay, and then we are just adding that particular button to the JFrame. Next, in this item state change, now remember, item listener will implement this function called item state change. In this, I have to pass the item event class and the object, and there is a if condition here. So listen very carefully. Button dot, using this button, using this object called button here, what we have created for J toggle button, this button we have created, that object you have to use dot is selected. This will give me is selected true or false. Okay, this particular button dot is selected will either return true or false. If this is true, if this returns true, is selected returns true, then the text of my button, the text of my button will be set to off. Okay, if this returns false, then the button the text of my button will be changed to on. Okay, this is how you can write an action item listener event or item state changed event for this particular button, guys. So remember this, it's button dot is selected, which will give me either true or false. If it is selected, true will return. If it is not selected, false will return. True means the text will be basically when it returns true, this button dot set text is off means when I've clicked the button, it is pressed only. It is in the state of pressed state. Okay, when I click again on that same button, it will pop back out and the text will be on. Okay, so I will show you now. I will just execute this program once. All right. Are you able to see the example, guys? Okay. So in this particular case, you can see here, when I click on, see what happens now. I'm clicking on, guys. What happened just now when I clicked on? The text changed to off. That means what? That if condition that we have set has been set to true. Okay, because that button dot is selected returned true, the text has been set to off. I click the same button again, see what happens. Again it will turn to on and the button will be popped out again. This is popped in, this is popped out, popped in, popped out. Okay, so initially it is on, right? When I click on it, the text of the button will change to off. When I click on that same button again, it will change back to on. Okay, this is a simple example of a toggle button. Now you remember, this is different from your normal button, because remember, The normal button has only one thing. That is, if you click it, that's it. You don't have anything called as on state or off state, or you do not have two states for a normal button. For a J toggle button, you have two states. That is the reason we are able to write like this. Okay, because when I click on that, you can generate something called as an item event, and item listener will handle it, right? And item state changed. As soon as the state has changed, I am saying that if this returns true, then change the text to off. If this returns false, change the set text to on. So this is a simple, very simple example of how a J toggle button works in your swings, guys. Very, very simple. A new component, because we have not done this in AWT. J toggle button is a new component in swing. So make sure you know this. Any questions with this, guys? Can I move on? I will share these slides with all of you guys, because many things I've added in this. So obviously I will share it today. Apart from that, J toggle button, any questions, guys? Just tell me yes or no. If no, I will go forward.
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll go to the next one. You already know about something called as checkboxes. These things we have done in your AWT, but it is obviously the class is only different here. The only difference here in this swings is the class name. The class name we use here is checkbox. Remember, checkboxes, you can select multiple checkboxes. Radio buttons, only one at any given time. Checkboxes, you can select multiple checkboxes. That is the difference, right? So that is how these checkboxes work. A square box will be there, in which when I click, a check mark will come inside. When I click on the same square box, that check mark will go off, right? That is how your checkbox works, right? So what kind of event will occur with this, guys? Checkbox, can you tell me fast without seeing?
Item event.
Yes, it generates something called as item event, right? So make sure you know that checkboxes will generate item event, right? So it provides functionality of the checkbox, same thing. Okay, and it is a super class, immediate super class for it is actually a child class of J toggle button, guys. This J checkbox is a child class of J toggle button. Okay, next, it generates obviously item event, right? And you can use get item for getting the item, fine. And you can use item listener as the listener for this item state changed function, right? So if you want to get the item from that particular checkbox, we have already seen this in AWT. If you do not know it, I have created a video and uploaded it also. You can see that whenever you can. Get item means whatever is there in my checkbox, whatever is next to my checkbox, that item it will get selected. Okay, it will return that item. Next, the same thing can be used for this also. Determine the selected state of the checkbox. You can use is selected. Same thing for J toggle button, what we used. You can use is selected to check if the checkbox has been selected or not selected. Okay, so same thing as the previous class. Next, these are the different types of constructors you can have for a checkbox. Normal checkbox without any parameters, it creates a unselected checkbox initially without any text for that checkbox. The second type, normally no one will use this, obviously, but there are some instances they will use it, guys. Next one, their constructor is, it is having a string. That means for that checkbox, some string we have given. The third type of constructor, for that checkbox, some string we have given, and we are telling if this selected, the second parameter is true, that means that checkbox by default will be selected. Otherwise, by default, that checkbox will not be selected. If you give this as false, this thing as false, then it will be not selected by default, right? So these are the three types of parameters. And one more last parameter we have here is something called as action. You can directly provide an action in this particular parameter, in this checkbox parameter. Fourth type of constructor, you can directly pass the action where the properties are taken from this particular action itself. So we'll see an example on this, guys. And in this okay, yeah, so we will do this, guys. And we are doing a lot of programs today, so please be with me and listen carefully. Many new things I'll be teaching you, so listen very, very carefully, guys. Do not get disturbed somewhere. Sit in your own room somewhere and then listen to it. If you sit in hall with your mother, father, brother, sister, you will not be able to understand what I'm saying. So sit in your own room and listen so that you understand what I'm saying. So in this particular example, you already know, I have just now talked about what is a swing checkbox demo, guys. So in this case, the same exact thing, I'm creating a class here. Now this particular program also has only one single class, that is swing checkbox demo, which is extending a JFrame, and then it is implementing a action listener. Okay, now what this action listener is for, I will tell you a little later. But remember, your checkbox will not. Please mute whoever it is. I'm not able to hear. Somewhere is outside, I think. Please, all of you mute your mics. So in this particular example, swing checkbox demo, it is extending a JFrame, okay, and it is implementing a action listener. That means I am going to use a button inside this particular example, okay. Even though your checkbox is generating item listener, I am not going to use that. I'm using an action listener for it. Guys, whoever it is, please mute your mics. I'm not able to hear what I am saying only. Okay. So in this particular example, you can see here, initially I have created or declared a label called L. I have declared 3 checkboxes and I have declared one single button. Okay. So these are the 3 different components we are using: label, checkbox, and button. So in this case, the constructor I've created is swing checkbox demo. And in this particular example, initially I have created a label. Okay. And that label contains food ordering system. Okay. The label will contain food ordering system, and the size of that label we have set to so and so. Okay, the size, width, everything we can set using the set bounds. I have already told you this. Next, we have a checkbox. This is how you create a checkbox. J checkbox is the class, and inside this I'm passing a text: pizza at 100. You can write 100 rupees. Okay, I've written only 100 there. You can write 100 if you want, right? And then I'm setting the size of that. Creating another checkbox with burger at 30. Now you can write rupees also inside. Then I have created another checkbox, tea at 10 rupees. You can create another checkbox, right? Next, we are creating a button. Okay, we have created one label. We have created 3 checkboxes: pizza checkbox, burger checkbox, and tea checkbox. And then we have created a button called order. So when I click on order, something will happen now. So we'll see. It is very interesting. It is practical application actually. That's why I'm telling you this. So in this case, b.setBounds again will set the size and where it should be in my JFrame, right? Next, action listener. I am registering an action listener for this B. Is a button. B button will always generate. Remember, J button will always generate an action event. J toggle button will generate item event as well as action event, but only J button will generate an action event. So we are registering an action listener to handle my action event of the button B. Okay. Next, we are just adding all these labels, buttons, and checkboxes onto my JFrame. I am setting the size of the frame so and so. Layout is null. Visible is true. And fault close operation is so and so. We have already seen this in all the previous examples. Next, in this action performed, we'll see what happens. So when I click on this button B, now something should happen. So we'll see now initially what we are doing. So listen carefully. This is a little different. So in this case, initially I've given a variable called amount, and it is set to float, and initially it is 0. The value I have given is 0, and we have taken another string called message. Okay, and initially it is empty. Next, if now listen very carefully, if is cb1 dot is selected, what will this is selected return, guys? All of you answer. Is selected will return
True or false?
Yes, very good. So if I check the checkbox, it will return true. If I uncheck the checkbox, it will return false. That is what this is selected will do. Okay. So that means if this condition becomes true, or basically if this function returns true, then it will perform these 2 things. What is it doing? Amount is equal to, obviously this is a remember, it is not actually only amount is equal to 100. It is amount is equal to amount plus 100. So it means, what will it be, guys? Amount is equal to, what is amount initially? 0. So initially it will be amount is equal to 0 plus 100. Okay, and message will be equal to pizza colon 100. So we'll see. So if this condition has become true, I am setting my amount variable to amount plus 100. That is 0 plus 100. Amount will have 100 initially for this checkbox one if I have selected. Okay, and the message will be printing this. Next, if CB2 has been selected, next if I've selected 2 things now, listen very carefully. If I have selected two items, two checkboxes, if I have selected CB1 and CB2, then initially what was there in amount, guys? Here, what was the amount value?
100.
100. Very good. So in this case, what will happen is it will do amount is equal to 100 plus 30, because the amount here has been already set to 100. So it will do amount is equal to amount is 100 plus 30. That is 130. This will become now. If I select this and select this, both checkboxes, if I select at the same time, you will get the amount is equal to 130. Okay. And the message will be equal to so and so, burger 30. Next, we have another checkbox. And if I select all three, what will happen? If I select all three, what will happen? 100 plus 130. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So what will be the amount? If I select all three, what will be the amount?
140.
140.
Yes. So it will print 140 if I select all three of them. And the message is so and so, T is 10. Okay. And remember, I'm just printing the message. For printing the message, I have given message is equal to, what is the message? Pizza 100, burger 30, T 10. For that reason, I'm giving so that we can differentiate between different messages. I have given this particular thing. So it will print this. Next, it will go to the new line. It will print this. It will go to a new line. It will print this. Okay, that is how this will print, right? Next, J option pane, right? There is a, this is a new one, guys. So listen carefully. We have a pane called as in J in your Sphinx option pane, guys. J option pane dot. There is a inbuilt function for this J option pane class called as show message dialog. So it will basically show a dialog, guys. The last topic of your 5th unit is actually dialog. So this is how you can set the dialog, guys. J option pane dot show message dialog. That means whatever is there in my message, if I want to show, I can use this class with this function. So whatever is there is stored in my message object, I can display it on my JFrame by using this pane. Okay, J option pane dot show message dialog, or a dialog box will be created. Inside that, this means in this JFrame, create a message plus total will print the amount. Okay, so message plus total colon amount it will print, and this you already know. This is how you call a Swing checkbox demo class we have created. I will just run this right now and I'll show you example, guys. All right, are you guys able to see it, guys? Food ordering.
Yes.
Food ordering system. So in this food ordering system, I don't know how much the rates are, but anyway, simply something has been put here. So when I click on this, see what happens. I want to order pizza and I want to order burger. These two things I want to order. I'll click on those two and I click on order. One dialog box is generated. Remember, this is called as J option pane, which will create a dialog box, or it is an alert box. Okay, this is like an alert box. In your web tech, whenever you go to websites, remember suddenly some ad pops up. Okay, that is like it is nothing but an alert box, guys. In JavaScript, we have something called as alert function is there, which will generate an alert box. Similarly, here also, this dialog, this is called as a dialog box. Okay, so it will create a dialog. In this, what am I printing here, guys? Pizza 100, burger 30, and I'm giving those dashes, and then it is printing total colon 130. Okay, so this is how you can see. So if I select only burger and I click on order, are you able to see that message, guys? I don't know if you are able to see the message. The dialog box, are you able to see, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this case, when I click on only burger, you can see burger has been selected and total is 30. If I select all three of them and click on order, you can see all of them have been selected and the total it has done to 140, and you can click on OK. When I click on OK, in real scenario, that data will get stored in the database, so that for that particular user who has ordered it, that data is getting stored in the database. Okay, and those people will start processing the order. For example, this is a simple example of you can have an order system for Zomato maybe, or Swiggy, or whatever you want. So in that case, they will have certain applications in their particular, they will have it in, hotels and all such applications will be there, right? And once they say, once you click OK, the data will get stored for that particular user. What is the order that they have done? So this is a simple example, a practical example of how you can use a checkbox, guys. Okay. So it is not only a normal checkbox we have created. Apart from this checkbox, after selecting the checkbox, we are adding whatever is there inside my checkboxes. Okay. And then we are just printing. Whatever they have selected using this J option pane show message dialog, which will create a dialog box. Okay, in that, for this J frame, I want to create a dialog box and print this whole thing, message as well as total. That is what this second parameter means. This is your first parameter. First parameter is the object of where you want to create the dialog box. In this case, this J frame, right? And the second parameter is nothing but your what you want to print. So this is how you can, print in a J frame using a J option pane class, right? Alert box can be created. So we will move on to the next one, guys. I am going a little quickly, so please stay with me, all of you. Do not lose me. Next, we are going to look at something called as J radio button. We have already done this, and nothing much new is there in this. So I will not go into everything. So, but just remember all these things. Radio button, you can select only one button at any given time. You cannot select multiple radio buttons at the same time. That is the first thing. Second thing is, you already know that there is something called as button group we have to create using a class called button group. Same thing which we have used in AWT, same button group class will be used in Swings also to create a button group. Once that button group has been created, to that particular button group only we will add these radio buttons, and at any given time only one will be selected. Okay, so same exact thing, but the only thing, the one more very big difference here is AWT did not have an inbuilt radio button class. AWT did not have a inbuilt radio button class. Here Swings has an inbuilt radio button class called as J radio button. In AWT, for creating radio buttons, we used a checkbox class only. But here we will have a separate class called J radio button. So that is a difference you should know. So radio buttons are a group of mutually exclusive buttons. So any one can be selected at any given time, right? J radio button is the class we have to use. And this is also extending a J toggle button, or basically this J radio button is the child class of J toggle button. Okay, just like your checkbox, it was a J checkbox was a child class of a J toggle button. J radio button also is a child class of J toggle button. Okay. Next, button group is created by using this button group class. You know that. And using this add, we can add those buttons basically, right? Radio buttons. Whenever you want to add the radio buttons, this is how you can add them to that particular group. Next, this J radio button generates action events. Okay, this is a new thing, so you should know this. It not only generates action event, it generates item events and also something called as change events. Okay, so these are the three types of events that can occur with J radio button: action event, item event, and change event each time the button is selected. So we'll see a few constructors for J radio button. The J radio button is a simple, the first one is a simple constructor without any parameters. It creates an unselected radio button with no text. Second one creates a radio button with some text. Third one will create a radio button with some text, and you can make it selected or unselected by default by giving true or false here. So this option, whatever second parameter, either you have to give true or false to make it selected or unselected. True means selected, false means unselected, right? Next, we have a few more functions. You already know these functions. We have used it for your radio buttons in AWT. I will not go over each one of them, but you can just see this. You know that you have used something called as set text already. Whenever you want to set the text of a radio button, get the text from a radio button, you can set the enable to true or false. That means you can make it enabled or disabled. And you can set an icon. This is a new one. You can set an icon also for this radio button. Remember, normally you used to set for a radio button, you can put only text, right? For radio button, you can add an icon. Icon is nothing but image. If you want an image for that particular radio button, you can use set icon. You can, if you want to get that particular image, you can use get icon. You can use mnemonics for this also. You can use mnemonics. Remember, I already told you what is a mnemonic. Mnemonic is nothing but a shortcut key to execute that particular button. If I want to click on that particular radio button, this mnemonic shortcut key will be there to click on that particular radio button. So that we can do using set mnemonic. Okay. So we will see a small example on this radio button, guys. All right. Are you able to see the example, guys, all of you? It's a very simple example. We'll go through it pretty quickly and then move on. Next, here you can see same exact thing as the previous examples. It is swing radio button demo class I've created, extending JFrame, implementing action listener. Okay. And in this particular class, initially I am declaring 2 or 3 components total, 2 radio buttons and 1 normal button. Okay. Next, in this initially I have created a constructor. In this constructor, same thing, guys. I am creating the radio button with the text called mail. Okay. I am setting the size of that radio button. Next, another radio button I am creating with the text as female, setting the size for the radio button, then creating a button group. Remember, we have to add these radio buttons to a single group. Otherwise, both can be clicked at the same time. That we do not want. Only one should be clicked. So that's why we have created this button group. And you can see here, we have to add to the button group. How? Using this BG. BG is the object of button group class. Add is the function. What do I want to add? RB1, that is radio button 1 and radio button 2. Both of them I am adding here. This is the first one and this is the second one. So both are added to the same button group. So now when I click on the radio button, only one will be selected at any given time. They will be mutually exclusive. Right? Next, I'm creating a normal button using a J button. When I click and the text given is clicked, size is set to so and so, and listener, I'm adding for this particular button, I'm adding registering a action listener because I want to do something when I click on it, and I'm adding all these to my J frame. Right? Radio button 1, 2, and button I'm adding. Size I've set the frame to 300 by 300, layout so and so, set visible true. Next, in this action performed, you can see here now, again for radio button, you can use the same function called is selected to check if the radio button has been selected or not. This will return either true or false. Okay. So if this condition becomes true, or if this is selected returns true, then this will execute. What is this saying? Same thing. Now, if I want to print in a dialog box, this is how you can print. We have already seen in the last example. J option pane dot show message dialog, for which this frame, okay, and it will print you are male. If this is true, it will create using option pane a message dialog box, and for this frame, it will print you are female. Right? When I click on male, it will print this. When I click on female, it will print this. That's all. Okay, you can see now how these things you already know. Right? Create a child thread for my swing radio button class. So I will just execute this program, guys. So today it is a Shatabdi Express train, guys. So please stay with me. I'm going pretty fast because these are all simple things we have already done. Are you able to see this thing, guys? I have not set the title for this. You can set the title also. Are you able to see
Yes.
this, guys? Okay. So in this case, when I click on mail, and I click on this button, a dialog box will come and it will say you are male. Okay, and click on OK. If I click on female, remember it is mutually exclusive. Both will not get selected because we have added a button group. If I click on this again, it will say you are female, right? So I will just, so this is a simple example of how to use a radio button in your swings. It is J radio button you have to use, not checkbox as you used in AWT, right? So it's a very simple example for your radio button, guys. Any questions you can ask me. Remember, this is how you create a dialog box. You are male, you are female, to print whenever your radio box has been selected. Radio button 1 selected or radio button 2 selected, right? In this action performed, we are doing it. If you have any questions, you ask me. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next one, guys. All right. So the next one is nothing but tabbed pane. Okay. This is not PAIN. I'm very sorry. It is not PAIN. It is PANE. Tabbed pane. Okay. So in this particular example, listen very, very carefully, all of you. Remember, in your browser, if you go to any browser nowadays, you have tabs. You go to Google Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, Opera, so many are there. Any of them, if you go to, they are all having something called as tabs. That same concept you can use in Swings also. In your applications, you can create tabs. On each tab, when I click on each tab, it will open a new window. Okay, or that tab will be opened, right? So that same thing can be used in your Swings using a class called Tabbed Pane. I will show you an example on this. So Tabbed Pane can be used to create panes. It manages a set of components. So listen very carefully now. In each of those tabbed pane, for example, I create 3 tabbed panes. In each of those tabbed panes, I can create different components. In tabbed pane 1, I can add maybe one text box and a button. In another tab, I can add maybe a list box. In another tab, I can add something else. Right? For each tab, I can add a different set of components. That is very important. Till now, in one single frame, we were adding things. But now for each pane, tabbed pane, I can add a separate component, separate group of components. That is one very important thing you should listen. So using this tabbed pane, you can do that, tabbed pane, right? So it sets, it manages a set of components by linking with them. Guys, it will get disconnected now. Please reconnect all of you very, very fast. I will finish it off today, guys. So please reconnect. It will get disconnected now. Next, in this particular tab, it uses a model called as single selection model. By default, it uses a model called single selection model. That means at any given time, I can select only one single tab. I cannot select 2 tabs at the same time. Any one tab can be seen at any given time. Okay. So you can see here using this add tab function, there is an inbuilt function called as add tab. This add tab function I can use to set the name of the tab and whatever component I want to add in that particular tab. Okay, very, very important. In this add tab function, I have to pass the name of the tab, okay, and whatever components I want to add to that particular tab. So this is the function you can use. So you can see your name is the name of the tab, right?